This is Michael Gamble coming to you from Midtown Atlanta. I direct the Master of Architecture program, and I'm in the studio every day. I teach in the fall and the spring. In the spring this semester, I'm teaching a design and research studio to students in the last semester of their Master of Architecture, and we're focused on daylight and nightlight, and we're teaching together with engineering students. So I have engineers and architects working together. Some very cool projects I'll share with the group once we're done. I'm going to pass the mic over to Maria.
Okay. Hi, I'm Maria. I'm on the last year of the 2-year MArch program, but I went to Tech for undergrad as well, so I've been here for like 6 years. And I'm excited to be here and talk to you guys.
Let's see, I think from Maria, does it go to Laura?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Flusci. I am the Executive Director of Moda, the Museum of Design Atlanta. We are the only design museum in the southeastern United States, and we work a lot with the College of Design and the School of Architecture at Georgia Tech, so happy to be here.
Awesome. Gene, Kansas.
Hey everyone, I'm Gene, Kansas. I've been in Atlanta for 25 years. I'm a cultural developer, so do real estate within the built environment, things like historic preservation, adaptive reuse. Also bring in a community focus, difference-making focus. So in terms of culture, we do things like articles clubs and jazz nights. Proud to have received a master's from Georgia Tech in digital media, and got to do a little interloping within College of Design, which was a great experience.
That's awesome. And Sarah?
Hi, everyone. I am Sarah Laudeman. I am a MArch 2 student, also finishing up my final year and actually sharing studio with Maria. My background is in architecture and mathematics from UNC Charlotte, so this is only my second year in Atlanta, but I've fallen in love with the city and with tech.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think now Sarah is going to sort of be the DJ here. She's organizing the slides and a little video that we're going to share. So I'm going to ask Sarah now to take us over to the slides. So I'm Michael. You met Isra at the beginning. Maria and Sarah are students. Laura heads Moda, and Gene just has a lot going on in town, including some really awesome radio shows. So we're going to go to the next slide. But what I wanted to share with you to begin with is a little 2-minute video about a new building that we have on campus. And let's go ahead and start, and let's see if it works.
All right, and it will mute you over the video.
Cool. I'm Michael Gamble. I'm in the College of Design. My background's in architecture and fine art. I've also been the chair of the Candida Building Academic and Research Council. We're very hopeful that this little building facilitates the free exchange of ideas related to the biggest challenge to our generation and our children's generation, climate change. On opening day of the Candida Living Building here at Georgia Tech, it signified the beginning of the project. The beginning is it being accessible to the public, to our students, to community and industry partners. The reason that the project looks and feels the way that it does is because so many of us were involved early on. Awesome design team, awesome engineering team, and we imagined this space at the very beginning as a sort of non-denominational space where different research groups, different student groups, different intramural and extramural groups would have a place to meet that would be open. So the future activities in a building like this, in a place like this on campus, are where the real promise is. And we're seeing a big shift in the value of design when it comes to just making healthy environments for us to live and work in. And the living building, we hope, will move the needle on creating spaces with less toxicity and more natural light. There's a whole future of entrepreneurship and innovation that can come out of a project like this. Entrepreneurship is something Georgia Tech really believes in, and it's a whole palette of community and industry partners who actually believe that sustainability can drive innovation. That's the real ambition of a project like this. So it's not a big building by university standards, but we feel pretty strongly that it's going to have a profound impact on the region.
Wow, that worked. That's great. Am I back?
You are.
That was
Awesome.
amazing.
Well, sustainability can drive innovation. I'm telling you, we're not joking about it at Georgia Tech. It's a very entrepreneurial environment. It's a very innovative environment. And now we have the most sustainable building in the Southeast that we're teaching and learning in. So when you come to visit campus or when you begin your studies next fall, you're going to be spending a lot of time in a living building. So that was sort of my intro. Maybe just a couple of other slides here. Next slide. Yeah, there we go. We've already seen the face of Georgia from Sarah and Maria. Next slide. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna go through a little bit of some of the buildings on the Georgia Tech campus and some of the feature things to do in Atlanta. So this is where you're gonna be if you're in any of the grad programs, the MARC2, the MARC3. This is the Hinman building. This is where we have all of our studios. You might be on the ground floor, you might be upstairs in the urban design studio. But this is kind of a big collaborative space where everybody's on the same kind of floor. It's hard to see what studio is what, but it's kind of a fun kind of research space. You can't go anywhere without seeing what other people are doing, so it's very collaborative. That's what we're missing the most right now that we're online, is that kind of collaboration, informal kind of interaction with your peers about your projects or your life or whatever. So this is a really awesome building. You can go to the next one. I think there's one more picture of it. Yeah, so we have this cool spiral staircase. There's what we call the hammock, which is that hanging kind of multi-purpose space that we have for reviews. And this is a really kind of unique building on campus. Everybody that comes in here is very jealous that everybody gets their own desk and everything, and people they just want to be in that space because it's interesting kind of interior space in ed tech. You can go to the next one. Okay, so here's another picture. This isn't during one of our end of year events. I think this was portfolio review or end of year show. We have these events, school-wide events where people pin up their work at the end of the semester, and Hinman just fills up with people, and it's really awesome to see the whole school together and all the messy desks. You can go to the next one. Okay, so this is another spot on campus. So we have some pretty cool spaces. This is on top of the Clough building, which is really close to the School of Architecture. They have a rooftop garden where you could go and study or hang out with your friends and things like that. So the campus is very focused on sustainability right now, but this building is not that new. I think it was done in 2013, but they already pushing for that. And this is all the water system in this building. They catch water from the Georgia Tech green that's right next to it and from the rooftop, and they use it to irrigate this vegetation on the rooftop of this building. So it's a cool spot. Next. So this is from that same building looking down to one of the main pathways on campus. You can see there's a lot of greenery. It's a beautiful campus. It's very close to the city. You can see the buildings in the background. And I think that's what makes Georgia Tech so unique, is how it's so tied to the city and the industry, especially architecture firms and things like that. So that's one of the reasons I picked Georgia Tech when I came here 6 years ago. But it doesn't feel like you're in the city because the campus has so much greenery and things like that. So it's really a beautiful campus. Next. So some other things around Atlanta that are very relevant to designers, but also anybody living here. One of them is the Beltline. If you're from here, you've heard about it. But has a big connection to Georgia Tech because it was part of a thesis project from a MARC student here a couple years back, a lot of years ago. But it has been realized, and has had a great impact on the city, and people love to be in it, and you meet new friends, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. And I think it's a really great thing, and I'm really proud of how it's connected to Georgia Tech in a way. So next. And then some other things in Atlanta recently, we've had this building finished. This is the Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the Falcons football play, but also Atlanta United. So that's been a huge kind of cultural change in Atlanta recently for the better. I think it's really brought people together to experience things differently, and this building is phenomenal. If you have the chance, you can probably just walk in there. I know I did in one weekend. The building's just open. Well, probably not right now, but later. But it's a really awesome building, and the surroundings of this building are all getting developed. So this should be a really interesting area of the city in a couple of years. Yeah. All right. I think
This
okay.
passes over to Laura.
Hi, everyone. My name's Laura Flusci. You heard that before. I'm the director of Moda, which is the Museum of Design Atlanta. We partner a lot with the College of Design and the School of Architecture. And I just want to tell you a little bit generally about the museum. Let's go to the next slide, please. Moda is a non-traditional museum, and we are just across the street from the more traditional museum in town, which is the High Museum. That is a museum that deals with fine arts. We are dedicated to design only, and we are non-collecting, which means that we don't have objects that live here. So we put up about 3 exhibitions a year that look at a wide variety of design disciplines, and we do tons and tons of programming as well. And the idea that drives everything we do at Moda is a definition of design as a creative process that inspires change, that transforms lives, and that makes the world a better place. So we think of design as an agent of change. And as a result of that definition, we have started over the past 6 or 7 years to put up exhibitions. I'm going to show you a smattering of them that look at what design is accomplishing in the world and what it can accomplish. Let's go to the next slide, please. Next, please. Next slide. There we go. We are a storefront operation. We're at the bottom of a building that was purchased by the architecture firm Perkins & Will over a decade ago and completely remade. And we have been fortunate to take up space there. So that's a sense of what we look like from the outside. Next, please. And this definition of design that I talked about, design as an agent of change, causes us to ask 3 really important questions about everything we do and about what museums are. One of them is, what if a museum looked forward instead of backwards? And we do that, I'll give you an example here, by putting up exhibitions that look at what designers are doing now and what impact their work will have in the future. So this is an exhibition we did in 2018 called Designing Playful Cities. It looked at how designers and artists and all designers, artists, all sorts of people are redesigning and hacking cities in order to provide places for play, both for adults and for children. Our exhibitions tend to be really interactive. So you entered this exhibition through a hallway full of pool noodles, and people got kind of crazy in there. It was very fun. Let's go forward, please. Next, please. And there were lots of ways to interact. Next, please. And the kinds of projects that were featured were projects that were big scale, like Janet Eckelman's work in Philadelphia, where she retrofitted a plaza in order that the lights and the water on it show the passing of subway trains below, or work like this done by an artist collective in Marseille, France, in which they are hacking basketball goals in order to make them into recycling bins, essentially, and make it fun to put things in there. Go forward, please.
I love it.
Another question we ask is, what if museums prioritized active inquiry over passive observation? Next, please. Traditionally, Traditionally, museums have asked people to stand back and to look at things and to believe what and to believe what the museums are telling them. We certainly do some traditional exhibitions, but we always try to get people involved. This is an exhibition that was a few years ago by a graphic designer and artist in New York named Luba Lukova. She works at the intersection of graphic design and social justice. Let's go forward, please. So her work looks like this. It is beautiful, it is simple, it is highly conceptual. Education versus war on the left, and bird on the right. It speaks to everyone. Let's go forward, please. But in addition to showing Luba's work, we invite people to get involved when they visit an exhibition. So in this exhibition, people had the opportunity to make posters, a kind of traditional way of getting involved, and then put them up and they became part of the exhibition. And we find that adults and kids love to do this stuff. Let's go forward, please. We also asked people to tell us their social justice story. So they were able to grab some string. Each of those round pieces that you see on the wall has a social justice issue on it, and people were asked to weave their story, telling us which social justice issues had affected their lives. Go forward, please. And again, please, forward. As well as to grapple with social justice issues, a lot of times those kinds of issues are not easily resolvable, so we created a way for people to move words around and greater than, less than, and equal signs in order to try to figure out, for example, is urban decay greater than or less than pain, and so on and so forth. And we saw lots of people starting conversations around this piece with each other and other visitors. Go forward, please. The third question that we ask at Moda is, what if a museum took a stand? Traditional museums tend to try to be neutral, which is not to come down on the side of saying we are going to talk about this particular social justice issue or human right. And we believe that design as an agent of change needs to be in that conversation about what is right and what is wrong at the most fundamental levels. So we do talk about that. Let's go forward, please. We did that a few years ago in an exhibition called Making Change, the Art and Craft of Activism, and it showed work that was at the intersection of traditional crafts like quilting and knitting and embroidery and ceramics and paper cutting, but it showed work in which those disciplines were intersecting with, again, social justice and human rights issues, and that is a movement, if you don't know, that's called Craftivism. So it was a show about Craftivism. Let's go forward, please. Visitors were invited to get involved in that exhibition as well. And one of the ways that they did that was participating in a project called Badass Her Story. It's being run by a woman in Chicago named Shannon Downey. And she is asking people who are women or identify as female to embroidery their story on a 12 by 12 inch piece of fabric. So we worked with Shannon to set up a station in one of our galleries in which people could participate in that. Tons of people did it. Go forward again, please. They were able to hang their embroideries on the wall after they did them. Go forward, please. These are some examples. Let's go forward, please. We found lots of people learning to sew right there in Moda. And then at the same time that people were participating in Badass Her Story, they could also participate in a project called Welcome Blanket. It's a project that was started by Jana Zweiman, and she was trained as an architect. She is the person who designed the pink pussy hat. And she had a project then in which she was working with museums, and we would host the project, and we would invite people across the nation to make, whether they knitted, quilted, sewed, blankets, and send them to us at Moda, along with a note of welcome to a new immigrant or refugee to the country. We got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of blankets in the mail. Our mail person hated us for about 4 months. Let's go forward, please. We cataloged all the blankets, we photographed them, we hung them on our walls. Let's go forward, please. And then we worked with various agencies around Atlanta who help immigrants and refugees find their way when they get to the country to distribute them. And on the left, you see a woman who herself came to the United States for the first time about 20 years ago and has become a successful businesswoman. She made a quilt. That quilt was given to the woman on the right who arrived just last year, and you can see that she has wrapped her son in it. So every blanket was able to be given to someone new to our country as a warm welcome to the United States. Go forward, please. How can you get involved? There are lots of ways. You can volunteer, you can become a member when you're here, you can come visit us. Let's go forward, please. And we do partner with the School of Architecture to put on lectures every year in which we bring very well-known architects to town, and we have a lecture that's attended by industry professionals as well as students. This is one from a few years ago when Marion Weiss and Michael Manfredi of Weiss Manfredi spoke. Go forward again, please. And Craig Dykers from Snowhead has been part of that series as well. So hope to see you at Moda. If you come to Georgia Tech, hope you come to Georgia Tech, and hope you'll get involved and become part of our design community. One last slide, and then I will be quiet. You can get involved right now because we're doing everything online. So we have a new series called Drinkin Design that's rolling out this afternoon, by which we're interviewing designers and asking people to get involved in conversations with them. Today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be talking to T. Cheng, and I'm sorry, I put an extra E on her name. I bring this up because T is a graduate of Georgia Tech and the College of Design. She graduated from the School of Industrial Design, and she founded a women's pleasure company called Crave, and she will be speaking today. And if you want to join us, it's absolutely free. You just have to register on the Moda website. She's an incredible speaker and a very funny person, and will probably give you lots of insights about life after school. So thank you.
So this is Gene, Kansas. Love Moda, love Laura. Amazing place, great cultural partner, great cultural leader in this city. While we're waiting for the slides to come up for my part of this, I just want to, address that it's an uncertain time, but I want to reassure you all that you are coming to an incredible institution, an amazing city. It's a community, it's an environment, it's an ecosystem that's built around learning. It's about having a safe environment to do that. The first day that I came to Georgia Tech, there was an auditorium full of students, and I was in the Ivan Allen College, which is the liberal arts, and the chair of the school came in and said, "Every one of you all is an outlier." And that just set me free, because it said, yeah, we're all different, and that's okay. That's actually great. You are safe to be yourself here. You can think the way that you want to think. You can express yourself the way that you want to express yourself. And it's an amazing place, and you will find that. If I can have the slides for, let's see, do we have the welcoming party by any chance?
It's in there, yeah. Keep clicking.
Okay, cool. Good. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, Atlanta is this great place. On this call today, you're meeting lots of cultural leaders. Michael Gamble, who is, there you go, Michael Gamble, who is, our esteemed friend and leader of this call and at the college, is also a practicing architect with Gamble and Gamble. My firm was fortunate enough to work with you, Michael, on the historic Daily World building, which is a historic preservation project. We were fortunate enough to be named the #2 win nationally by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. A lot of our work as a firm, including the rehabilitation of the Daily World, is in Sweet Auburn. You will find out a lot about Atlanta if you get out of the classroom, which I would recommend. Learning at Tech is great. Learning in the city and in your own experiences in life, equally, if maybe not more important. Sweet Auburn is the birthplace of the civil rights movement. It's the birthplace of Martin Luther King. And it's home to our company in a civic, social, and culturally based shared workspace called Constellations. I'm going to share right now in the chat feature links to a variety of different websites. The first one's called Building Memories. It's a radio show that we did in collaboration with Georgia Tech. It's about the historical consequence of space. So what happened somewhere and how did it affect the world beyond its walls? It'll give you a great history about Atlanta. You'll start to learn more about the city that you'll be spending the next however many years in. There's also a link to our website. There's a link to the Atlanta Daily World project that we worked on with Michael and Gamble. And then there's a link to Constellations Community, which brings me to this slide. So Constellations is it's an adaptive reuse project. It is on Auburn Avenue. The building was built in 1910. I love when people come over and they just are somewhat in awe of like what's here. And they say, "Who's your architect?" And I tell them Neil Reed, who is a famous Atlanta architect. You can Google him if you do not know. Did not do a tremendous amount of commercial buildings. This is one. It was a school book warehouse. If you go back, I think maybe one slide. So you can see at the top the art on the pediment there. This is the building, Constellations. The art is an open book and torch of knowledge. That's really the ethos of Constellations. So knowledge, enlightenment, the sharing of it. All of the businesses here, it's a shared workspace, have some type of interest in difference making in the world. Next slide. We have a lot of programming. One of the programs that we have is coffee. So every afternoon when there are people here, which we can talk about in a moment, there is coffee. Sorry, back up for one sec. And coffee is important because it fosters cultural conversation. And when I mentioned earlier that I love Moda, that wasn't lip service. We do a lot of partnering with them. One of the things that we did was we hosted an articles club called Periodical. So imagine a book club with a lot less commitment. And the article, it's fun, and especially when you're busy, you got 10 minutes, you can read the article. So Laura hosted us at Moda. It was part of this conversation around their Art of Espresso exhibit, which was magnificent. Just showed the design of espresso machines kind of from like the mid-century on. Some of them were space age, some of them were very mid-century, some of them looked like sports cars. And one of them was this tiny little in-home espresso maker called the Mocha Express, which, we don't have a whole lot of time on this call, but it liberated women in the 1950s through its design. Design matters. You all know that already. You're interested in that, or you would not be coming to Georgia Tech. You wouldn't be in the College of Design. This little in-home espresso maker made a big difference because prior to this, women in Italy were not allowed in cafes. And so when the in-home espresso machine came along and they started making coffee at home and having friends over and having cultural conversations and buying more and more of these little machines, the coffee companies took note and said, maybe we should market to women. And eventually that led to women being allowed into cafes. As part of all of these periodical article clubs that we always have a relevant speaker. And so in this picture, you see me hugging Kitty Murray. Kitty is not only our coffee partner 2 doors down now in the Daily World building, she's also the founder of Refuge Coffee Company. Refuge is job training, leadership development for refugees and immigrants, kind of masquerading as a coffee company. So to host them and welcome them here, much like this call is doing, in small part for you all, in form of a welcoming, we did that at Constellations. So next slide. We had coffee. Next slide. We had a big crowd. Next slide. We had city council members. So on your left is Council Member Natalie Archibong speaking with Kitty. This immigrant and refugee community is a welcoming one. Clarkston, Georgia, where Refuge Coffee was founded, is kind of the landing spot for refugees in the southern United States. Sweet Auburn, as I mentioned before, is the birthplace of the civil rights movement, is known as the beloved community. So this is the beloved community coming together with the welcoming community. One thing that you'll find in Atlanta, and I think apropos of this call, is access to leaders is very, very doable here. Whereas if you're in like a very large city that doesn't have maybe the same type of kind of small town roots or feel, or even southern hospitality as Atlanta, it might be hard to go and meet up with your city council member or the director of a museum like Moda, or the head of an award-winning architecture firm like Michael. And that goes on. And so you will, if you are resourceful, you can have access to just about anyone in Atlanta. Next slide. This is Leon Shibata. Right now, we're talking about, he's a refugee. We're talking right now about the problems that the world is facing, right? Global pandemic. It's horrible. When you go into Refuge Coffee and they're still open for takeout service, not only are they happy to see you, they're happy to be here. I mean, I don't think they're happy about coronavirus, but prior to coming to Clarkston, Georgia, prior to getting involved in leadership development and job training with Refuge, a lot of their leaders at Refuge were literally being shot at in the streets, being witness to and seeing family members die, through genocide. This is a whole different ballgame, and it really puts things in perspective. And so Leon came to the welcoming party to share with us his experiences, and it's humbling and it's also endearing. And so I think that this kind of speaks to the power of connection. It's easy to get embroiled in academia and just stay focused in your studio or just want to make, a high grade on a project. I would really encourage you to get out and make connections too. Next slide. If you see the little cards, the welcome cup, everyone who's on this call, when you get here, get my email from Michael, and we're going to get you some free coffee at Refuge Coffee and give you that opportunity to get out and learn about the city. I think I might be close to a final slide, but let's see. Is there any others?
You have 2 left.
One more. So this is Gloria from the Auburn Avenue Research Library. Back up one, thanks. Constellations is, as I mentioned, a book warehouse. The Daily World building, which if you're facing Constellations, is 2 doors down to the left, is a historic site in journalism, home to the country's first and longest running daily African-American newspaper. To our right is the Auburn Avenue Research Library. This is an archives type of library. there are no books. There are tons of archives that you can access digitally. And we're fortunate to be neighbors with both of these buildings and also Georgia State University and 100 Black Men. So where we are, we think about constituting this block of knowledge. Next slide. This is the new website that we're working on for Constellations. I think it's really important to keep in mind that as the world changes, we change with it. So we're working on a redesign of our website. You can go to our website now, which I sent the link, but on May 1st, May Day, the ancestral celebration of spring, we will be introducing a new, fresh, bright, happy, healthy site featuring our little animal friends here. I'm just saying, keep in mind what's going on in the world in your conversations, in your work at Georgia Tech, and you're all going to do great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to close it out with some updates from Sarah on career opportunities and outreach, and then we'll open it up to questions. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Laura, Maria, Isra.
Absolutely.
So just kind of to bring it full circle, I'm going to talk for just a few minutes about the community and outreach and opportunities that you'll be given access to by being at Georgia Tech in the School of Architecture. We have a great community in and outside of the school, in the city and in the greater Atlanta community. But within the School of Architecture, we are a really tight-knit group of faculty, staff, and students. We're all on first name basis with most of our professors, and you're in a program with 30 to 40 people for 2 to 3 years, and you become very close to these people, and you can share your work in a lot of different ways and interact and engage with the community, both at the academic level and the professional level. So 2 of our most exciting events maybe are the portfolio competition, which happens every fall, where everyone submits a portfolio. Everyone gets a chance to see all of their colleagues and classmates' portfolios, and awards are given out based on these portfolios. But it's really an opportunity to share student work and to share what we've been doing and what we're proud to have been doing. Additionally, kind of like Maria mentioned earlier, we have an end-of-year show in the spring every year where we celebrate the work from the past academic year and present it to both ourselves, our community within the school, and the greater Atlanta community of both professionals and practicing architects. Additionally, one of the biggest career outreach kind of events that we offer is the Spring Career Fair, where firms from all over the country at this point come to Georgia Tech and interact with students, meet with students. Some firms offer informal interviews that they've arranged beforehand. Others are there to speak and to see what's going on in the School of Architecture, as well as to find summer internships, part-time employment, full-time employment. And we have over 60 firms who typically participate in our career fair. Carmen might be able to chime in with the exact number this year.
60.
I believe it was 60 on the nose. There you go. So we have, like I said, firms from all over the country, both local and small firms and larger national and international firms that come and are there to engage with students, to look at portfolios, and they're here to hire. So it's really one of our most engaging career outreach opportunities. The Practicum Program is another opportunity like that. It happens over spring break, and it is a competitive studio placement for a week at any number of firms all over the country, where students go and work, shadow, and are present at the firm to get an idea of the inner workings of practice and to build connections that often come back around after the end of their program. I think that 2 or 3 graduating seniors this year have been offered positions as a result of the Practicum program that I've spoken to. And finally, a little bit of what we all might not want to admit that we're interested in. Georgia Tech consistently ranks very well across all areas of the School of Architecture rankings. As you can see, we've achieved top 10 in every focus area. here. And like Michael and Maria have been talking about, we're very, very interested in pushing forward with the sustainability and built environments and research topics. But we always make sure that we come back around to kind of the fundamentals of design and the interdisciplinary aspects of design. And then back to the community as a whole, you can actually see this is at Constellations on the left side. We had a student work exhibition put on by one of our student organizations, the EQIA group, where student work was on display at Constellations as a temporary exhibition. And it's opportunities like this through the student organizations and the professional community in Atlanta and in the design community in Greater Atlanta that let us network, whether it's through a new graduate mixer with Perkins and Will or these kinds of events out in the community at Constellations. And finally, just to kind of wrap it all back up and tie it all back together, Georgia Tech, like Maria said, occupies a really intricate position in the city itself. We are right on the edge of Midtown. You can walk into the city, you can walk from Midtown to Uptown, you can walk to the train station. We have a lot of opportunities in a growing city that we wouldn't necessarily have if we were anywhere else in the Metro Atlanta area.
All right.
Love the economic architecture event. Amazing.
Yes. And Gene, thank you for being such a supporter of that. So, well, we are actually right on time. We have 5-10 minutes for questions. Should anyone have a question? We have a couple of other events coming up. Tomorrow, I'm hosting an international study opportunities event. That's at noon. No, that's at 1 tomorrow. We've got a session on design and research. We've got a session on career opportunities coming up. So we're just trying to give you guys the best overview of the city virtually. I know I've seen many of you here on campus, and we really hope you'll choose Georgia Tech. Our strength is our community, our students, all of our allies in town. It's a booming city. I don't know if you've read the latest news, but Atlanta's number 4 in the United States in terms of absolutely explosive growth. And nowhere is it more evident than within a few blocks of our campus. And it's just a great time to be here. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. And if there's any questions, we can take those now. Otherwise, we'll be signing off soon. So if you have a question, please text.
Michael, there's one question in the Q&A. Are students encouraged to attend conferences in or outside of Atlanta?
They are. Funding's always competitive for that, but we provide funding to our equity and architecture group. We have the Urban Land Institute international competition that we provide financial support to each year. My research group, and I just shared a link to my research website, my Zero Energy Studio website. We participate in the Department of Energy Race to Zero Challenge each year. We just recently had a group of students in Barcelona who were recognized for excellence in digital design and fabrication. So yeah, there's a lot of conferences. You have to have a good, you've got to have a good argument. You got to have a good argument at your conference, and you have to have a good argument to go to your conference. But we do provide quite a lot of financial support. And there's a really good base of philanthropy here. The Living Building, which I opened with, was funded 100% privately. So that was a $30 million gift to Georgia Tech to support the creation of a building and a climate change program and an outreach program that is, you'll see it's going to very quickly become one of the best in the United States, if not internationally. So yes is the answer, and just have a great argument. Do good work, and you'll find many doors open for you.
So one of the questions that was also asked is, how safe is the city of Atlanta? And I will say very briefly that it's any other major city. There are better parts of it, there are worse parts of it, and it comes down to taking precautions and making sure that you're taking care of yourself. On campus, we have Georgia Tech police who are a branch of the Atlanta Police Department. They are fully uniformed officers. They're super friendly and super available. They host a bunch of events on campus. We also have a very good bus system and trolley system, which runs from the main campus up to Technology Square, as well as to the MARTA stations, and an after-hours shuttle service called the Stingerette that anyone can call between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., I believe.
Yeah, interestingly, I think everyone currently on the call lives within walking distance of campus. We all do. That makes a great neighborhood and a safer neighborhood there, just having everyone on the street. Midtown, Gene and Laura can speak to this. Gene and I have known each other for a number of years now, has gone through an incredible revolution in terms of just the way in which it's occupied and the way in which people live in the city. We have the largest park in the city right on the edge of campus. And there's a beautiful network of streets and sidewalks in Midtown. I'm sitting in a 110-year-old house here in Midtown that we run our architectural practice out of. It's a really beautiful neighborhood. And it's over the years gotten safer and safer. So I've never felt safer in Atlanta. I'll put it that way.
And just kind of to add to that, I live in graduate subsidized housing through Georgia Tech at the 10th and Home Family and Graduate Community. So I live right across the street from campus. I walk to campus across 10th Street every day. And honestly, I have to say that I feel safer living here in Atlanta than I ever did while I lived in Charlotte.
There you go.
I think this goes, like Sarah was saying, it's like any other big city. I'd watch out for bird scooters. That's a safety concern. Although these days there are none around. But not to make light of it, I mean, safety is a concern for anyone. It never even entered my mind while on campus, and still go to campus today. My wife and I have a 5.5-year-old, and we take him over there to like ride his bike and get coffee. And yeah, for him, he drinks the coffee. But anyway, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I would add just like if you are not familiar with Atlanta and you're trying to figure out where to live and things like that, I would try to find one of the ambassadors on the website and email us directly for specific questions like that, because I know I'm from a different country, so I had no idea where to live. So I lived on campus first, and I lived on West Side, and now I'm on the other side of campus. So I would reach out specific people about that, because I know it's really difficult if you've never been and you have no idea where to go.
And Maria, I will share our emails with them as well.
Okay.
That's a great point.
So I'll post our emails. Maria and I are both graduate ambassadors, so I will share our emails with you guys.
Awesome.
Laura, you're on mute. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that I see increasingly is that people are very easily constructing lives in Midtown that are carless, or that they're sharing cars. And I think that also has increased safety a lot. There's a lot more people walking around every single day, and especially in the area of campus. So it's the area around Georgia Tech has become extremely walkable and bikeable and scooterable.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Go ahead, Yusra.
There's one question for you, Michael. It's awesome to see that Atlanta area seems to celebrate a multidisciplinary approach to design that really considers social equity. Michael, can you share some ways that the studios and electives in the MR coursework provide opportunities for students to engage with other disciplines?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. I'll give you three answers. The first one is in the design studio setting. So in the design studio setting, we have folks from civil engineering, mechanical engineering, building performance, computer engineering, and I say people on campus and off campus. So there is, if you look at some of the portfolio work that's currently going on, you're going to see a lot of work that is collaborative. And if you click on the link to my studio, which I shared in the chat space, you'll see how we're working. We're even collaborating virtually. So that seems to be going pretty well. That's the first example. The second example comes through our student groups. So the first might be studio. The second would be student groups, which have been mentioned: Equity in Architecture, National Organization of Minority Architecture Students, American Institute of Architecture students. They're all engaged across multiple platforms on campus. And as you've heard already, we have a number of exhibition venues that are quite provocative. Now, the third one, which is really interesting, is what's known as Serve, Learn, Sustain at Georgia Tech. And Serve, Learn, Sustain is basically a service-based learning exercise. So, for example, we'll talk about design build studios in Africa tomorrow. And our design build studios are also interdisciplinary and cross-cultural. So you'll hear a lot more about that tomorrow. So the first example is the studio itself. The second example are our student groups. The third example are institute-wide initiatives like Serve, Learn, Sustain. And as you'll see, with the living building, I mentioned it in the video, but it's considered a non-denominational space, meaning that not one college owns it. And believe it or not, that makes a huge difference. So our climate change program is housed in the building, but all 6 colleges have faculty and student representation. And next year, I'm launching a course called Design and Climate Change. It's had unanimous support all the way up the institute ladder. And in that course, we'll have members from the economic and business community at Georgia Tech, philosophy and ethics, technology, engineering, architecture, liberal arts, and we're going to focus for 2 weeks on a subject. So for 2 weeks, we'll focus on ethics and design. And Robert Kirkman, who is one of the leaders in that ethical design space research, will be joining us. I could go on and on. I don't want to sound overly ambitious, but that's part of what Georgia Tech does.
If I can add to that, just from a student, an alumni now perspective, being able to go and take courses within architecture, not only was it a wonderful educational experience, it shifted how we as a company and I operate, professionally. And I'm going to put one more link up to a project that we're doing, in large part inspired by studio being allowed into the architecture studio as someone who can't draw very well. And it's called Indie Studios, and it's really like a shared workspace around design, not just architecture, any type of design, fashion design, software development, industrial design, the fine arts, et cetera. And so my time in the studio and understanding the culture that comes along with it, and specifically at Georgia Tech with the type of collaborative nature and just the brain power around you was incredible.
Yes. Okay, any other questions? All right. Well, we're at the end of our hour. Time flies. Thank you to Laura and Jean for taking time out of your busy days. And Laura, that's such an awesome backdrop. this is quite a show that Moda has on right now on biomimicry, bio-based design. It's a compendium of really fascinating work that operates at the intersection of research and artistic practice. And so happy that we made it to the opening before we were all sent home for a while. But I just want to reinforce what Jean said. We're open for business, and we're planning for an awesome academic year next year. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us, and thanks to everyone who joined for the call.
Awesome. Be safe, everybody.